In the summer of 2006, Christie's sold 800 items from Princess Margaret's estate. They sold brooches worth a few £100s. They sold intimate, personal gifts. A picture of total transparency, or so they wanted you to believe. Inside that exhaustive catalogue, one extraordinarily significant object was systematically erased. It had belonged to the last Empress of Russia. It had appeared in state-level photographs. But at the auction, no lot number, no estimate, no explanation. It wasn't just missing, it was forced out of existence. I spent years working inside auction houses, and I know this. You do not accidentally omit something like that from an 800 lot catalogue. This was not an oversight. This was a decision. Who signed that order? Why? At that specific moment. Today, we are going to pull apart the information control system that stands behind the Sapphire Sunray Bandeau. The story of the 2006 Christie's auction has been told in a very specific way. I think that version is incomplete. Princess Margaret died in February 2002. She was 71. Her death came just weeks before her mother's. Within months, her children, her son David, the Earl of Snowdon, and her daughter, Lady Sarah Chatto, were confronting a substantial inheritance tax obligation. The decision was made to auction a significant portion of her personal estate. Christie's handled it that summer. The numbers were extraordinary. The Baltimore tiara, the piece Margaret had purchased herself in 1959 for £5,500 and worn at her own wedding, sold for £926,400. According to Christie's official sale records of the 13th of June 2006, diamond necklaces, antique brooches, pearl earrings, personal gifts from friends and heads of state, all of it went under the hammer across 2 days. The press framed it as a royal dispersal, a lifetime of glamour, scattered across the globe to anonymous bidders. Sad, but inevitable. The inheritance tax forced the family's hand. That is the story as it was told. Most of it is accurate. But here is what that story skips entirely. A Christie's auction is not a complete inventory. It is a curated release. And when you look at what was curated out, what was retained, what received no public explanation whatsoever, the story changes considerably. The Sapphire Sunray Bandeau is a flexible diamond headpiece with a sunray design diamonds radiating outward from the center in expanding lines, creating an effect that is simultaneously architectural and organic. At its center sits a large sapphire and diamond cluster ornament. The central piece is detachable, removable, and wearable separately as a brooch, which Margaret did regularly. There are photographs of her wearing just the sapphire cluster pinned to her coat at public engagements in the early 1960s. The construction is sophisticated. The diamonds are set in a way that allows the bandeau to flex and move with the head, the kind of technical execution that places this piece firmly in the category of serious, high-level royal jewelry. This is not a decorative ornament. This is a piece designed to be worn at the highest levels of formal state function. And it was worn at exactly those levels. A French state visit, a presidential engagement, the wedding of Princess Astrid of Norway in 1961. These are not private, family occasions. These are events attended by heads of government, photographed by international press, documented in official records. The bandeau is in those photographs. It exists. It was there. And then it wasn't. Anywhere. To understand where the bandeau went, you have to understand where it possibly came from. And this is where the story becomes genuinely uncomfortable, not in a sensational way, but in a historically specific way that deserves to be taken seriously. Jewelry historian Leslie Field, writing in The Queen's Jewels, published in 1987, in the chapter documenting Queen Mary's personal acquisitions, states that a small V-shaped tiara with a large center sapphire had also belonged to the Empress, Empress Mao. The Empress she is referring to is the Flack Dowager Empress Maria Feodorovna of Russia, the mother of Tsar Nicholas II, the woman who watched her son's dynasty dissolve around her. Here is what we know about Maria Feodorovna in the years after the revolution. In 1919, she was evacuated from Crimea aboard a British warship, HMS Marlborough. dispatched by her nephew, King George V. She brought jewels. She was a woman who understood with complete clarity that what she carried on her body was what she had left. She reached Britain first, then Denmark, and she lived in exile until her death in 1928. After she died, her daughters, Grand Duchesses Xenia and Olga, began selling pieces from her collection. The British royal family were buyers. Queen Mary purchased several items. Some of those transactions are documented, receipts exist, amounts are on record. The purchase of the Sapphire Sunray Bandeau is not among them. No receipt, no confirmed acquisition date. No record of any kind. The Romanov provenance of this specific piece has never been officially confirmed or denied by the palace. What I find significant is not the uncertainty itself, it is that the palace has never addressed the claim in either direction. It has been in print since 1987. The palace has said nothing. That silence is the first layer of the system. I want to show you a specific transaction, 1921. A Russian Grand Duchess exiled, broke. Her family's empire, dissolved by revolution, sells Queen Mary a tiara for £28,000. That tiara is the Vladimir. Today, it is one of the most photographed pieces in the entire royal collection, worn by Queen Elizabeth for decades, still appearing at state banquets under the current reign. There is a full receipt. There is a documented transaction. The palace has never shied away from the Vladimir's Romanov origin. It has become part of the heritage narrative. So why is the Vladimir displayed openly while the Sunray has been hidden for 60 years? That is the question I keep returning to. Both are Romanov pieces acquired by Queen Mary. Both share broadly similar histories, but one is proudly displayed. The other disappears into 6 decades of silence without a single line of explanation. The only answer I can arrive at is this: the legal origin of the Sunray may be more complicated, more sensitive. Possibly something that, if publicly confirmed, would open questions the palace has no interest in answering, questions about acquiring assets at crisis prices from people with no options, about incomplete records, about the line between heritage preservation and the absorption of property from sellers who had no leverage. I am not accusing anyone of acting illegally. I am observing that the inconsistency in documentation, complete transparency for one piece, nothing for another, is not random. And institutions with something to protect tend to protect it in exactly this way, not by denying, but by never confirming. Princess Margaret began wearing the Sapphire Sunray Bandeau in the late 1950s, a state visit from the German president in 1958, a Caribbean tour, a dinner in the Bahamas, the French state visit in 1960, the wedding of Princess Astrid of Norway in 1961, the detached sapphire cluster, worn separately as a brooch at a public engagement in March 1962. And then she stopped. No sale, no public transfer, no announcement. The bandeau disappeared completely from her public appearances. She continued wearing the Baltimore tiara. She continued wearing the Persian turquoise parure into the 1990s. She wore other pieces regularly, visibly, across the remaining 4 decades of her life. The bandeau was kept. It was just never shown again. This is also the period when Margaret's marriage to Armstrong Jones was beginning to fracture, internally visible to those close to her long before the public knew. I am not claiming a direct connection between a deteriorating marriage and a retired tiara, but I am saying the timing is interesting. And Margaret was a woman of extraordinary deliberateness about her public image. Every jewelry choice she made was a communication. When someone that precise retires an object completely, not sells it, not gives it away, but keeps it and conceals it for 40 years, that is a decision with real weight behind it. What that weight was, I cannot say with certainty. What I can say is that the bandeau entered a kind of official non-existence during Margaret's lifetime that it has never left. Which brings us back to 2006. I want to stay here for a moment, because I think this is the most revealing part of the entire story. The Christie's auction included pieces of genuine historical significance. The Baltimore tiara, diamond necklaces worth hundreds of thousands of pounds, It also included pieces of almost no financial value. The range of the auction communicated something specific. This is a comprehensive accounting. A family opening its jewelry boxes to satisfy a legal and financial obligation. Nothing hidden, except the things that were held back. The Persian turquoise paria, a complete set of tiara, necklace, brooch, and earrings, given to the Queen Mother as a wedding gift in 1923 and passed to Margaret in 1951, was not in the auction. It is reportedly now with the Earl of Snowdon. No explanation was given for its retention. The Sapphire Sunray Bandeau photographed, historically significant, with a Romanov connection asserted in published literature since 1987, was not in the auction. No explanation was given. The lotus flower tiara, which most observers assumed had permanently left the royal collection after Margaret's death, eventually reappeared on Catherine, Princess of Wales, years later. It had quietly returned to the crown without any announcement at some point before or after Margaret died. The pieces with the most legally complicated ownership histories, the pieces where the question of who actually owned this has no clean answer, are precisely the pieces that received no public accounting in 2006. And here is where I need to ask a harder question. An auction designed to demonstrate transparency around an inheritance tax obligation, but which consistently omits the pieces with the most ambiguous legal ownership, is that full transparency? Or is it also strategic management? If certain pieces were retained because their ownership was legally unclear, meaning they never truly belonged to Margaret to sell in the first place, then including them in the auction would have forced a public confirmation of that fact, which would have opened questions about assets held outside legal accountability, about the boundary between personal royal property and crown property, about whether an inheritance tax bill was being paid in full or being paid selectively. Those are questions no one at Christie's in 2006 wanted to answer. I want to say this directly because I think the way royal jewelry is typically discussed in public prevents people from seeing what is actually happening. There is a genre of coverage around missing royal jewels that frames every disappearance as a charming mystery. Where is the bandeau now? Could it be in the royal vaults? Will we ever see it again? This framing turns institutional silence into something romantic. It positions the viewer as a gentle detective, hoping for a happy resolution. The tiara is somewhere lovely, being kept safe, waiting for its moment. That framing is a form of trained deference. It asks the wrong question in a tone that makes the wrong question feel comfortable. The right question is not, where is it? The right question is, why has an institution that communicates obsessively about its own heritage chosen to produce no public documentation of the ownership, location, or status of a piece this historically significant? Why is the answer to who owns the Sapphire Sunray Bandeau in 2024, in an era of unprecedented public scrutiny of royal finances, still officially unknown? Read any piece of royal jewelry coverage about a missing piece. Notice the language, romantic mystery, waiting in the vaults. Perhaps one day we'll see it again. That vocabulary exists because it was useful to someone. It keeps the question in the register of fairy tale, where no one demands a direct answer. That is not journalism. That is participation in the management of the narrative. Objects do not simply disappear inside major institutions. There are inventories, there are insurance records, there are legal documents accompanying every ownership transfer. The idea that a piece this documented exists in a genuine administrative grey area that no one inside the palace actually knows is not credible. Someone knows. The answer exists. It has simply been decided that you are not entitled to it. The bandeau is one example, but once you understand what to look for, this pattern appears across the entire arc of how the British royal collection was built and maintained throughout the 20th century. Queen Mary purchased Romanov jewels from exiled relatives during a period of crisis. Some of those transactions are documented. The Vladimir tiara purchase in 1921 is on record. Others exist only in the assertions of jewelry historians working from incomplete archives decades later. When anyone raises this history, the standard response is that Queen Mary was preserving family heritage, that she paid fair prices, that the sellers were grateful for the transactions. Those things may be true. The full records are not publicly accessible, which is itself the point. Inaccessibility is not a clerical failure, it is a design feature. Across a century of royal jewelry history, the pieces with the most complicated acquisition stories, the Romanov pieces, the pieces purchased during political crises, the pieces with unclear ownership transfers are consistently the pieces surrounded by the least documentation and the most deliberate official vagueness. That consistency is a policy of managed opacity, intentional, sustained, and effective. The Sapphire Sunray Bandeau, sitting somewhere unacknowledged for 60 years, is a precise and contained example of that policy in action. The bandeau is not particularly famous. It is not the Baltimore tiara. It has no celebrity photograph permanently attached to it. In terms of raw public recognition, it sits well below the pieces that generate headlines, which is possibly why it has been allowed to remain invisible for 60 years without anyone pressing hard for an actual answer. But its obscurity is also what makes it useful as a lens. The Baltimore's story is managed through its fame, the auction, the anonymous buyer. The mystery of its whereabouts becomes part of the romance. The bandeau's story is managed through invisibility. No one famous enough is attached to it to generate real pressure for accountability. The next time you read a piece about a missing royal jewel and feel that warm curiosity, that feeling of, I wonder where it is now, pause for a second. Ask yourself, why does that question feel comfortable? Why does the absence of an answer feel acceptable? And who benefits from you stopping right there, in that register of gentle wondering, rather than asking something harder? The bandeau has passed through revolution, exile, acquisition, display, retirement, and 60 years of official non-existence. At every stage, its history has been shaped not by accident, but by the decisions of institutions with strong incentives to keep certain questions permanently unanswerable. That is not a romantic mystery, that is a power structure, and the fact that we have been trained to find it charming, rather than troubling, that is perhaps the most revealing thing of all. I don't know where the Sapphire Sunray Bandeau is. My best guess, and it is only a guess, is that it sits in a vault controlled by the crown, which would mean Margaret never truly owned it. That the loan was always a loan, that when she died, the piece travelled quietly back to where it had always, legally, belonged. And that the reason no one confirms this is that confirming it would require confirming the nature of the arrangement, which would open questions about other pieces, other arrangements, other quiet returns that no one officially acknowledges. I hold that guess loosely. The documented record allows for several explanations, and the palace has chosen to support none of them with public information. What I am more certain of is the larger point. The bandeau is one object, but the pattern it represents is institutional, century-spanning, and still active. There are almost certainly other pieces inside that collection with equally complicated and equally unacknowledged histories. The methodology for keeping them hidden, selective display, deliberate documentation gaps, framing silence as mystery rather than as policy, is well established and highly functional. The bandeau hasn't been seen in 60 years. The palace won't explain why. By now, you understand that those two facts are not separate. If this story made you look at the royal collection differently, not just at what is shown, but at what is deliberately kept from view, that was exactly the intention. Like the video, if it made you think. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper. There are more objects like this, and some of their stories are considerably more complicated than a missing tiara.